4 or 5 years, Chloe Sterling and I were a couple, and for 5 years, she never let me lay a finger on her. Not one. Then I saw the security footage from her birthday party. Her guy best friend, Liam Ryder, using a tube of lipstick to draw all over her bare back. It was just a game, she laughed, throwing a medical report in my face. He was there for me when I had my abortion. What are you? I shredded the bid proposal for her father's company. Let's see who cries first. 5 years. 4 or 5 solid years. I, Ethan Vance, was like a devout monk, worshipping at the untouchable altar of Chloe Sterling. The tips of her fingers? Don't even think about it. If I leaned in too close, her brow would furrow into a tight knot, and the rejection in her eyes was sharp enough to cut. You'd think I was some kind of filth, that my very breath would tarnish her. Ethan, a relationship isn't sustained by superficial contact like that. Don't you understand? Chloe would say this with such conviction, her chin tilted up, radiating an unassailable purity. Fine, I get it. A platonic ideal where emotional connection is paramount. I bought it, and I endured it, because I was completely, hopelessly hooked on her. But that paramount emotional connection took on a whole different flavor when it came to her guy best friend, Liam Ryder. Liam Ryder. Even the name reeked of a slick, try-hard pretentiousness. He was Chloe's childhood friend, the kind she'd known since they were in diapers. With him, Chloe had no reservations. The two of them together were so intimate it was blinding. I saw it myself. On a hot summer day, Liam's hand was draped casually over Chloe's exposed shoulder, his fingers kneading her skin every so often. And Chloe? Not only did she not pull away, she smiled and leaned in to talk to him, her breath practically ghosting across his face. They were so close my fists clenched instantly. Chloe. I kept my voice level, but it was stretched as taut as a bowstring. Only then did she seem to notice I existed, slowly turning her head. The smile hadn't quite faded from her face, but her eyes, when they met mine, were already cooling, tinged with the impatience of being interrupted. What is it? She asked, her body subconsciously leaning closer to Liam. That bastard, Liam, had a smirk playing on his lips. His gaze drifted over me, filled with undisguised triumph and provocation. The hand on Chloe's shoulder even tightened its grip. Nothing. I heard the words grind out from between my teeth, each one coated in ice. It's hot. I was worried you'd get sunburned. What the hell else could I say? Lunge over and break his damn hand? Chloe would be the first to fight me. Oh, she said, the single syllable light and dismissive. She turned right back to joking with Liam, treating me like I was just part of the scenery. Incidents like that were endless. Liam could pick up the latte Chloe had half finished and take a long sip from the same straw she'd been using. If Chloe saw, the most she'd do was slap his arm playfully. Jerk, save some for me. The tone, the expression, it was a universe away from the pristine, saintly ice queen she was with me. Liam could, in the middle of a crowd, suddenly reach out and mess up Chloe's perfectly styled hair. Chloe would laugh and dodge, shouting, Liam, you're dead. But there wasn't a trace of real anger in her smile. It was pure indulgence. The most outrageous time was at a karaoke lounge. Chloe was on a roll, singing at the top of her lungs, having kicked off her heels to stand barefoot on the sofa. And that asshole, Liam, actually knelt, took her ankle in one hand, and with a napkin in the other began to meticulously wipe the dust from the sole of her foot. Chloe just let him hold her, shaking with laughter, even directing him. The left side, it's still a little dirty on the left. I was sitting right there. Blood rushed to my head, my vision tunneled, and a roar filled my ears. My stomach churned, and the nausea was so intense I nearly threw up on the spot. I shot to my feet, my ragged breathing louder than the deafening music blasting through the speakers. Ethan? Liam looked up, too, his hand still gripping her ankle. He wore that infuriating, punchable half-smirk, as if to say, see, she lets me. Getting some air. I bit out 3 words through a clenched jaw and practically slammed my way out of the room. The cold air of the hallway filled my lungs, tamping down the violent rage that was boiling inside me. I leaned against the cold wall, dragging hard on a cigarette. Even the harsh burn of nicotine couldn't numb the dull, grinding pain and humiliation of being flayed alive, over and over again. 5 years. I'd put her on a pedestal like a goddamn fool, handled her with more care than I would a priceless artifact. And the result? In front of another man, she could be a boneless invertebrate, letting him touch places I wouldn't even dare to dream of as off-limits. Trust? Respect? Bullshit. In Chloe Sterling's eyes, Ethan Vance, was probably nothing more than a complete and utter joke. A prop she used to decorate her life, to satisfy her vanity about some spiritual love. And Liam? He was the one she truly let her guard down with, the one she could be shamelessly intimate with. Her person. I crushed the cigarette but against the top of a trash can, leaving a black, scorch mark. The fire in my chest burned hotter, searing my insides. Fine. Chloe Sterling. Liam Ryder. You two think you're clever, don't you? You really think Ethan Vance is a pushover with no breaking point? Just wait. This rage I've choked down for 5 years? Sooner or later, I'm going to make you both spit it back out with interest. Chloe's 25th birthday party was a grand affair. Her father, Robert Sterling, had made a small fortune in building materials back in the day and was considered a minor player in the local scene. The party was held in the ballroom of the Summit, the most expensive hotel downtown. Crystal chandeliers cast a dizzying light, and the air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and gourmet food. It was a sea of elegant dresses and sharp suits, the clinking of glasses a constant refrain. The guest list was a who's who of local society and the Sterling's business partners. As her official boyfriend, my attendance was required. Dressed in a tailored suit, a polite smile fixed on my face, I stood by Chloe's side, playing the part of the model boyfriend. Watching her cling to my arm, smiling sweetly as she greeted her father's associates, a chill spread through my chest. Her acting skills were wasted. She should have won an Oscar. Liam was there, too. He was wearing a flashy burgundy velvet blazer, his hair slicked back with too much product. He floated around the room with a glass of champagne, a social butterfly making small talk with everyone, acting like he was the co-host. Chloe's gaze kept drifting toward him, and when their eyes met, the knowing, intimate smile they shared was a spike in my gut. Ethan, what are you spacing out for? Chloe nudged me, her voice low. Mr. Peterson is talking to you. I snapped back to reality, turning to the pot-bellied, shrewd-looking man in front of me and forcing a professional smile. Mr. Peterson, you were just saying that the parcel on the east side. After a round of schmoozing, the muscles in my face felt frozen. I made an excuse about needing the restroom, but really, I just had to escape the suffocating hypocrisy of it all. I crossed the noisy ballroom, heading for the quieter hallway at the far end. As I passed the hotel security office, the door was slightly ajar. Inside, a few guards were watching a wall of monitors. On some bizarre impulse, I stopped. My eyes scanned the screens, and one image instantly seized my full attention. It was the feed from a camera in the fire stairwell leading to the hotel's rooftop garden. The lighting was dim, but it was clear enough. Chloe was standing with her back to the camera. The zipper on the expensive champagne-colored dress I'd bought her was pulled down her waist, her entire smooth, pale back completely exposed to the air. And Liam Ryder was standing behind her, holding a tube of lipstick, a vibrant blood red. He had that playful, almost lewd smile on his face as he leaned in, using the lipstick to draw, stroke by stroke, on Chloe's naked back. In that single instant, all the blood in my body rushed to my head with a roar, then froze into a solid block of ice. I was paralyzed, unable to move, my eyes nailed to that small, horrifically clear screen. Liam drew with slow, deliberate concentration. The waxy red carved a lurid trail across her pale skin. He drew a crooked, grinning skull, and next to it, an equally lopsided heart, dripping with what looked like blood. When he finished, he seemed pleased with his work. He leaned closer and whispered something in her ear. Chloe's body gave a distinct, pleasurable shiver. She didn't flinch, didn't scold him. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, her face wearing an expression I had never, ever seen her direct at me, a mix of coyness and indulgence. It was almost a flirtation. She even shifted her hips, as if to give him a better angle for his art. Liam grinned triumphantly. He reached out and smeared one of the wet lipstick marks with his fingertip, and then he brought the red-stained finger to his own mouth and sucked it clean. His eyes were a direct challenge, as if they could see through the screen and were staring right at me. Boom! Something inside my head exploded. My vision went red. The bright red skull and heart on the screen, Liam sucking the lipstick from his finger, Chloe's flirtatious smile. The images spun and magnified, turning into 1,000 white-hot needles stabbing into my eyes, drilling into my brain. A metallic taste flooded the back of my throat. I clenched my jaw so hard it ached, just managing not to vomit right there. Every bone in my body groaned under the strain. My fists were so tight my nails dug deep into my palms, the sharp pain doing nothing to quell the overwhelming rage and the soul-deep humiliation of being stripped bare in public. 5 years. 5 years of careful devotion, of restrained, patient respect, and this was my reward? Cheap, vulgar art scrawled in lipstick on her naked back. In her eyes, what the hell was I? A complete and utter idiot, worth less than the dirt on the bottom of her foot. I spun around. A cornered animal finally pushed past its breaking point and charged toward that goddamned fire stairwell, radiating a fury so palpable it was almost visible. Each step was heavy, my leather shoes striking the polished marble floor with a dull, rapid rhythm, like a hammer on my own fracturing heart. I slammed the heavy fire door open with a deafening clang that echoed in the narrow space, making my ears ring. The scene inside froze. Chloe was frantically trying to pull up the zipper of her dress. On the wide expanse of her pale back, the garish red skull and bleeding heart seared my eyes like a branding iron. Liam was leaning against the cold wall, the incriminating tube of lipstick still in his hand. The playful smile hadn't quite vanished from his face. He looked startled to see me. Then his expression shifted back to that sickening, cocky smirk. Well, Mr. Vance, what's with the temper? Looking for us? Liam spoke first, drawing out his words with undisguised mockery. Chloe finally got the zipper up and spun around. Her face was still flushed, but it was now a flush of anger and embarrassment of being caught. And impatience. Her brow was furrowed, her tone sharp. Ethan, what are you doing? You scared me to death. I stared at her, my gaze like a poison-tipped blade, scraping across the face that was suddenly so alien to me. It finally settled on the small, blinking red light of the security camera on the wall behind her. My throat felt like it was clogged with hot coals, making it almost impossible to speak. Each word was ground out from between my teeth. What am I doing? What the hell do you think you're doing? I jabbed a finger toward the camera, my voice raw and distorted with pure rage. Under a security camera, at your own goddamn birthday party, playing these cheap, trashy games? Chloe, have you no goddamn shame? Ethan, you watch your mouth. Chloe's face went crimson, a mixture of fury and humiliation. She shot back, trying to overpower me with volume. What's trashy? Your mind is disgusting. Liam was just joking around with me. We were just messing around. What is your problem? A joke. I felt like I just heard the most absurd thing in the world, the fire in my chest threatening to blow the top of my head off. Messing around? Drawing skulls and hearts on your naked back with lipstick? And then sucking it off his goddamn finger. Chloe, tell me, what kind of sophisticated joke is that? Do you think I'm blind? Do you think I'm an idiot? I advanced on her, step by step. The cold fury rolling off me made even Liam drop his spectator's smirk and instinctively straighten up. 5 years. I didn't dare touch more than the tip of your finger. You lectured me about respect, about emotional connection. And this is the result. I pointed at her, my finger trembling with rage. This is how you let him respect you. This is how he emotionally connects with you. At the birthday party your father threw for you. In a fire stairwell where anyone could walk in at any moment. That's enough. Chloe stumbled back, her back hitting the cold fire door with a dull thud. Her embarrassment was completely replaced by a kind of cornered, defiant recklessness. Her eyes grew sharp. Ethan, don't you dare bring up the past. How long have I known Liam? There's nothing going on between us. He's my best friend, my family. How we interact is none of your business. Family? Friend. I laughed, a harsh, dry sound. What a family. What a friend. Chloe, you tell me, what kind of family or friend does this to you? Do you have some kind of warped definition of those words? You. Chloe was choked with anger, her chest heaving. Liam, standing to the side, decided he couldn't just watch anymore. He stepped forward, positioning himself between me and Chloe. He put on that disgusting fake smile again, his tone dripping with condescending advice. Ethan, calm down. It's not a big deal. Chloe and I grew up together. We're closer than siblings. We horse around sometimes. We don't have boundaries. You're a grown man. Don't be so petty. Chloe doesn't let you touch her because she's reserved and respects herself. You should understand that. Fuck your self-respect. And fuck you being closer than siblings. I finally lost it. 5 years of humiliation, anger, and resentment erupted like a volcano. I swung my fist with all my strength, aiming straight for Liam Ryder's smug, disgusting face. Crack! My knuckles connected squarely with his cheekbone. The force of the blow sent him stumbling back into the wall with a cry of pain. The lipstick flew from his hand, leaving a bright red streak on the concrete. Liam! Chloe shrieked, rushing to his side. She looked at his rapidly swelling cheekbone, then back at me, her eyes filled with incredulous fury and a deep, profound contempt. Ethan, are you insane? You hit him? She screamed, like a mother animal protecting her young. Hit him? I want to fucking kill him. I was panting, my chest heaving, my eyes bloodshot as I glared at them. Chloe steadied Liam, looking at the bruise on his face, a storm of anger and anxiety in her eyes. Suddenly, As if remembering her ultimate weapon, she dug into her small clutch, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and, with a vicious, cathartic motion, slapped it across my face. The edge of the paper scraped my cheek, a tiny, sharp sting. "Look, Ethan, open your eyes and take a good look." Her voice was shrill and distorted with a twisted glee. "Who do you think you are? Besides acting like a lunatic and hitting people, what else can you do? Last month when I had acute appendicitis and was in the hospital for surgery, in agony, where were you? You were out of town closing some stupid deal. It was Liam. Liam dropped everything without a second thought and stayed with me at the hospital for 3 days and 3 nights. He brought me water. He ran errands. The nurses thought he was my husband." She pointed at the paper that had fluttered to the floor. "And this, last year, when I had an accidental pregnancy and was lying alone on that cold operating table for an abortion, so scared I was shaking. Where were you then? Where the fuck were you?" It was Liam again. He signed the papers. He stayed with me through those horrible few hours. He picked me up from the hospital and took care of me. Did you know about any of this? Did you ever even care? What kind of boyfriend are you? What the hell are you? She practically shrieked, every word a poison-tipped icicle stabbing into my heart. And now you have the nerve to question my relationship with Liam, to accuse us of crossing a line. Ethan, are you even worthy? The paper lay silently at my feet. It was a copy of a hospital form. Printed clearly at the top were the words, "Abortion Procedure Consent Form." On the signature line for next of kin, a confident, flowing script spelled out 3 words, Liam Ryder. The date was from last winter. The winter I had spent an entire month overseas for a crucial international merger. She had only said, offhandedly, that she wasn't feeling well and was resting at home. I was swamped, calling her across time zones, telling her to take it easy. Abortion. Surgery. Liam signed. He was there. The words were a branding iron, sizzling as they burned themselves into my mind. An unspeakable cold shot up from the soles of my feet, spreading through my entire body, freezing even the inferno of my rage. I stood there, my body as stiff as a statue. A roar filled my ears, and Chloe's sharp accusations and Liam's pained groans faded into a distant blur. All I could see was that damning piece of paper on the floor. 5 years. I thought I had given her everything. I thought I respected her, cherished her, gave her the best of myself. And the result? In her moment of greatest need, of greatest vulnerability, of greatest pain, the man by her side was someone else. A guy best friend who could doodle on her naked back and sign the consent form for her abortion. And me? I was a complete and utter fool, kept in the dark, smugly playing the part of the perfect boyfriend. The world's biggest idiot. A colossal, absurd, and soul-crushing sense of despair washed over me like an icy tide, drowning everything. The anger was still there, so was the humiliation, but they were buried under a profound numbness, the feeling of having your heart ripped out and stomped into the ground. Slowly, so slowly, I bent down and picked up the piece of paper. It felt weightless, yet heavier than anything I had ever held. My fingertips were numb, devoid of warmth. I unfolded it and read it again, carefully. Every word was a needle in my eye. Then, I looked up at the two of them, huddled together. Chloe's face was a mask of anger and accusation. Liam was holding his bruised cheek, but behind the pain in his eyes, I could see a flicker of a victor's satisfaction. Suddenly, I smiled. It wasn't a laugh of rage. It was the cold, empty smile of a man whose heart had just died, a smile that floated up from the abyss. It was a quiet sound, but made both of them tense up. Good. Very good. My voice was unervingly calm, as placid as the sea before a hurricane. Chloe Sterling. Liam Ryder. You two are really something else. I carefully folded the consent form and placed it in the inside pocket of my suit jacket, right next to my heart. I couldn't feel a beat anymore, just a block of lifeless ice. A game. I gave them one last look, my eyes devoid of any warmth, holding nothing but a bottomless darkness. Fine. Then let's play a real game. Let's see who ends up crying. Without waiting for a reaction, I turned, pulled open the heavy fire door, and walked back into the fake, nauseating clamor of the party, and I didn't look back. Behind me, there was only dead silence. The noise of the ballroom wrapped around me like a greasy film. The crystal lights were still blinding. The champagne tower still reflected a dizzying array of colors, and the well-dressed guests were still laughing and talking as if the ugly, soul-bearing drama in the fire stairwell had never happened. The impeccable smile of the Vance Enterprises heir returned to my face, even more flawless than before. Only I knew that beneath it lay a chasm of frozen darkness. In my pocket, The folded consent form felt like a white-hot brand, searing my very soul. Ethan, you were gone for a while. Everything okay? An older associate of the Sterlings came over with a glass of wine, his voice full of concern. Everything's fine, Mr. Peterson. I nodded slightly, my smile warm, my tone easy. Just had to take an important overseas call. A little business matter. I even casually took a glass of champagne from a passing waiter's tray and clinked it against his. Sorry to keep you waiting. Business first for you young people. I understand completely. Mr. Peterson chuckled, taking a satisfied sip of his wine. I went through the motions, but my eyes were like cold probes, scanning the room. It didn't take long to find Chloe and Liam. They had re-entered the ballroom from another entrance. Chloe had fixed her makeup and put on an expression of nonchalance, though her eyes were still slightly red and puffy. Liam was deliberately keeping one side of his face turned away from the crowd, but the swelling on his cheekbone was still visible under the lights. He was pressing a glass of ice water against it, and he shot a venomous glare in my direction. Chloe's father, Robert Sterling, a portly man with a perpetually flushed face, was weaving through the guests with a wine glass in hand, basking in their compliments. At his side was his company's VP, a sharp-looking man named Mark Davis, Robert's most trusted subordinate. They were whispering about something, and Robert was nodding, a look of supreme confidence on his face. My gaze finally settled on the thick, elegantly bound blue folder in Robert Sterling's hand. On the cover, in bold letters, were the words, North Riverfront Development Project Bid Proposal. I knew this project. Robert Sterling had bet the farm on it, pulling every string he could. It was the key to taking his company to the next level, his ticket into the city's true upper echelon of wealth. A thought, cold and sharp as a serpent's tongue, slithered into my mind. Carrying my champagne, I walked toward Robert Sterling and Mark Davis, my face a perfect mask of social grace. Mr. Sterling, Mr. Davis, I said, my voice clear, with just the right amount of deference for a younger man. Ah, Ethan. Robert's smile widened when he saw me, the look of a man sizing up his future son-in-law. There you are. Mark and I were just talking. If we can land this North Riverfront project, we'll be counting on Vance Enterprises for support with the material supply. He clapped me on the shoulder, the gesture heavy with a businessman's practiced warmth and probing intent. You're too kind, Mr. Sterling. My smile didn't waver as my eyes flicked to the hefty proposal in his hand. A project this big, with you at the helm, it's a sure thing. Vance Enterprises would be honored to be a partner. My tone shifted, taking on a note of calculated curiosity and concern. By the way, sir, I heard the competition is fierce this time, especially Horizon Construction. I believe they have foreign capital backing them, and their pricing strategy is very aggressive. At the mention of a competitor, Robert's smile faded slightly. He snorted. Ah, Horizon? A pathetic clown. I know everything about them. They want to compete with me? They're not ready. He instinctively tightened his grip on the proposal, as if it were an invincible weapon. Mark Davis chimed in on cue. Exactly. Don't worry, Ethan. Mr. Sterling has spared no expense this time. Our proposal is rock solid, and our pricing is optimized. A company like Horizon, built on throwing money around, doesn't have the staying power. That's good to hear. I nodded, my smile sincere. With you and Mr. Davis overseeing things, I'm sure it's in the bag. I raised my glass. Here's to your success, Mr. Sterling. Ha. From your lips to God's ears. Robert laughed heartily and clinked his glass against mine. In that precise moment, as our glasses met with a crisp chime, my wrist was accidentally bumped by a passing waiter carrying a full tray of drinks. Oh, I am so sorry, the waiter stammered in a panic. My glass tilted violently, and the golden champagne inside surged out like a flash flood, arcing perfectly onto its target, the vital blue-covered bid proposal in Robert Sterling's hand. Splash! The champagne instantly soaked the thick cover, bleeding rapidly into the pages within. The blue folder turned a nasty brownish yellow, the paper immediately growing soft, wrinkled, and stuck together. My proposal! The smile on Robert's face froze, replaced by sheer shock and panic. He let out a strangled cry. He fumbled to save it, but the drenched paper was fragile. As he pulled at it, there was a sickening riot. A large section of a key page, soaked with alcohol and covered in crucial data and plans, tore away, clinging to his hand in a pulpy, wrinkled mess. The entire ballroom fell silent. All eyes snapped toward us, a mixture of shock and morbid curiosity. Dad! Chloe's panicked voice cut through the silence as she pushed through the crowd. When she saw the ruined mess in her father's hand, her face went white. Liam followed her, his eyes widening for a second before they shot to me, filled with dark suspicion. Mr. Sterling, I'm so terribly sorry. My face was a perfect picture of panic and guilt. I quickly set down my glass and pulled out a napkin, making a show of trying to clean the mess, but my actions seemed futile against the utter ruin of the document. This waiter was so careless. Look at this. What are we going to do? Do you have a backup? Is there time to fix this? My tone was filled with concern and self-blame, every expression perfectly calibrated to portray a young man who had just made a terrible mistake. Robert Sterling stared at the pulp in his hand, which now reeked of sweet champagne, then at the curious eyes of his guests. His face went from red to white, then to a deep, blotchy purple. He was shaking with rage, his lips trembling. He looked like he wanted to scream, but the social setting and my status forced him to choke it down. He resembled a rooster with its neck being squeezed. Back up. He spun his head toward Mark Davis as if grabbing a lifeline, his voice cracking. Mark, go back to the office. Get the digital file, no. Get the printed backup proposal. Now, immediately. Go. Mark was panicked too, stammering. Yes. Mr. Sterling, I'm going. I'm on it. He turned and practically ran, stumbling as he rushed out. Mr. Sterling, I am so sorry. I sincerely apologize again, my voice heavy. It's all my fault. I lost my grip on the glass. Please, if there's anything I can do to help, just say the word. Robert Sterling's chest heaved. He stared at me, his eyes a maelstrom of emotions. Anger, suspicion, but mostly the raw panic and despair of a man whose victory had just been snatched away. He opened his mouth, but all that came out was a dry, raspy phrase. It's fine. An accident. Just an accident. Ethan, you should go mingle with the guests. He waved a dismissive hand as if the effort had drained him. He slumped, staring at the ruined paper in his hand, his eyes vacant. Dad! Chloe held onto his arm, looking at me with frantic questions in her eyes. Ethan, did you? I met her gaze, my face still a mask of regret and innocence, with an added touch of appropriate worry. But deep in my eyes, where she couldn't see, there was only a cold, placid stillness. Chloe, take care of your father, I said quietly, my tone gentle, but creating an undeniable distance. Then, under the gaze of dozens of onlookers, I calmly walked away from the epicenter of the chaos. Behind me, I could hear Robert's suppressed, desperate gasps, Chloe's tearful attempts to comfort him, Liam's gaze, dark enough to curdle water, and the low, gleeful whispers of the other guests. I found an empty corner, turned my back to the crowd, and pulled out my phone. I dialed a number. It connected quickly. Hello, Mr. Keller at Horizon? This is Ethan Vance. My voice was steady, betraying no emotion. About that North Riverfront project. Yes, there was a bit of an accident with the Sterling proposal. They're scrambling now. A backup will take them at least an hour to get here. Yes, this is an opportunity. That last quote you had, I think it could be optimized a bit further. Right, push it below their cost line. Don't worry, Vance Enterprises will provide you with the most favorable rates for material supply going forward. Good. A pleasure doing business with you. I hung up and pocketed the phone. My fingertips were cold, but the brand over my heart didn't seem to burn quite so intensely. This was just the beginning. Chloe Sterling, Liam Ryder, the humiliation and betrayal you forced on me, I will collect on, piece by piece, with interest. I will take what you value most and crush it right before your eyes. The game has just started, and you've already lost the first round. The North Riverfront deal, a plot of land practically dripping with money, went to Horizon Construction. There was no suspense. When the news broke, it sent a tremor through the city's business community. Robert Sterling's sure-thing project, hijacked at the last minute by the little-known Horizon. And Horizon's bid was so surgically precise, it was terrifying. It came in just a fraction below Sterling's estimated cost line, robbing him of any chance to appeal on grounds of malicious competition. Sterling Industries was thrown into chaos. I sat in my spacious, light-filled office on the top floor of the Vance Enterprises Tower, the city skyline sprawling outside the massive floor-to-ceiling windows. My assistant, Chris, stood respectfully before my desk, reporting the latest news. Mr. Vance, things at Sterling. They're a complete mess. Chris's voice held a trace of excitement. As soon as Horizon's win was announced, Sterling's stock price nosedived at opening. It hit the limit down in less than half an hour. I heard Robert Sterling smashed everything in his office and screamed at his VP, Mark Davis, blaming him for being too slow with a backup proposal. I slowly raised a coffee cup to my lips and took a sip. The rich bitterness spread across my tongue, bringing with it a strange, clarifying pleasure. The backup proposal? A cold smile touched my lips. Even if he'd gotten it there an hour earlier, the outcome would have been the same. Horizon's meticulously optimized bid was a kill shot tailor-made for Sterling. Yes, sir. You were right, Chris nodded, understanding completely. Furthermore, Sterling's cash flow is in serious trouble. They invested heavily in the North Riverfront project, tying up almost all their liquid assets and taking out massive loans from several banks. Now that the project is dead, the banks are getting nervous and calling in their loans. Suppliers have heard the rumors and are camped outside their headquarters demanding payment. Robert Sterling is losing his mind, begging everyone he knows for money to stay afloat. Money. I set down my coffee cup, my fingertips tapping a light, steady rhythm on the polished mahogany desk. The sound was like a funeral drum. And will he find any? Chris knew exactly what I meant. We've already spoken with the major investment firms and banks, as you instructed. Sterling is a black hole right now. Anyone who gets involved will go down with them. No one is going to extend a hand. Good, I said flatly. My gaze drifted to the window, to the ant-like stream of cars below. Right now, Robert Sterling was probably running around like a headless chicken, struggling uselessly in a pit of despair. The feeling of watching your prey walk step by step into a trap. It wasn't bad. The chaos at the Sterling household inevitably reached Chloe. She started calling me nonstop. At first, it was accusations, her voice sharp with the anger of betrayal. Ethan, was it you? Did you sabotage the North Riverfront project? Why would you do this to my father? I held the phone, listening to her hysterical voice, and could only feel the profound irony. Ruin her father? Compared to what she and her best friend had done to me, this gift was nothing. Chloe, my voice was placid, feigning confusion. What are you talking about? I was sorry to hear the bid failed. Business is war. You win some, you lose some. Mr. Sterling just had some bad luck this time. I enunciated the words bad luck with perfect clarity. You're full of shit, she screamed, all her usual goddess composure gone. Ethan, stop pretending. The stairwell, my dad's proposal. It was all you. You did it on purpose. You're getting revenge on me. Revenge for me and Liam. Revenge. I let out a soft laugh, devoid of warmth. Chloe, you're overthinking things. Wasn't it already over between us? In your heart, Liam is the one who signs your abortion forms, the one who helps you through your darkest hours. You're a person. Me? Ethan Vance? I'm nothing. What right do I have to get revenge on you? The mention of the abortion form was met with instant silence on the other end. All I could hear was Chloe's ragged, suppressed breathing. After a few seconds, as if I'd stepped on her tail, her voice shot up, sharp and blustering. You're despicable. You're shameless. You investigated me. Investigated? My tone remained flat. Didn't you throw that piece of paper in my face yourself? Chloe, you were the one who ripped open that purely platonic friendship of yours for me to see. She was speechless, left with only ragged breaths. If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. I'm very busy. I gave her no more chances to vent and ended the call. But the calls didn't stop. They gradually shifted from furious accusations to tearful pleas. Ethan, I'm begging you. Please let my family go, okay? Her voice was hoarse, filled with helplessness. My dad, he can't take much more of this. The banks are calling in debts. The company is about to collapse. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have treated you like that. Just help us just this once, please? For the sake of our 5 years together. 5 years. I listened to her sobbing pleas, my heart as still as a frozen lake, stirred only by cold mockery. Chloe, do we have anything left to speak of? When you and Liam crossed the line again and again, when you threw that abortion form in my face, that pathetic little thing between us was torn to shreds by your own hands. No, that's not it. Ethan, let me explain, she said desperately. Explain. I cut her off. My voice as cold as a Siberian wind. Explain why you needed him to sign the consent form? Explain why he could draw on your back. Or explain why he acts more like your husband than your boyfriend does. Save it, Chloe. Your explanations will only make me feel more disgusted. On the other end, there was only the sound of suppressed, hopeless sobbing. Instead of begging me, I said, my tone indifferent, offering a piece of cruel advice. Why don't you go beg your best friend, Liam Ryder? Isn't he all-powerful? Isn't he your closest family? Let's see if he can be your savior again this time. With that, I ignored her broken cries, hung up again, and blocked her number. Finally, peace and quiet. Chloe's breakdown was just a minor note in this symphony of collapse. The true crescendo was yet to come. A few days later, an explosive piece of news detonated in the city's business and social circles like a depth charge. a senior accountant in Sterling Industries' finance department, who hadn't been paid in months, filed an official report with the IRS and the Economic Crimes Division out of revenge just before quitting. The report was an official accusation. The company's CFO, Liam Ryder, Chloe Sterling's guy's best friend, had been using his position to embezzle massive amounts of company funds over a long period. The methods were sophisticated, the sums were staggering, estimated to be in the 8 figures. And there was concrete evidence, bank records, and falsified contracts. The whistleblower's report, as if on wings, didn't just land on the desks of the relevant authorities overnight. It was also quietly circulated among key industry insiders. Liam Ryder, the man who had ridden Chloe's coattails to a position of power and influence at Sterling Industries, the insufferably arrogant CFO Ryder, instantly became a wanted man. Liam was arrested in his brand-new downtown penthouse. The scene, I heard, was quite spectacular. He was in his bathrobe, hair a mess, screaming into the phone at someone, probably Robert Sterling, demanding answers, when several uniformed officers knocked on his door. The moment they flashed their badges and the arrest warrant, all the color drained from Liam's perpetually smug face. It went white as a sheet. His knees buckled, and he almost collapsed on the spot. You made a mistake. I didn't do it. I'm being framed, he protested weakly, his voice shrill with terror. Liam Ryder, please cooperate with our investigation, the lead officer said, his face and tone all business. A pair of cold handcuffs clicked shut, locking the same wrist that had once so freely created art on Chloe Sterling's naked back. Photos and a video of his arrest were somehow accidentally leaked online. They were taken down quickly, but not before they went viral within our circle. In the pictures, he was wearing a wrinkled bathrobe, his hair looked like a bird's nest, his face was ashen, and his eyes were vacant. Flanked by 2 officers, he looked less like the dashing CFO Ryder and more like a pathetic stray dog. The already crumbling stock price of Sterling Industries took another nosedive off a cliff because of this massive scandal. Online investor forums were a firestorm of panic and curses, all aimed at Robert Sterling's nepotism and mismanagement. The calls from banks and suppliers demanding money blew up Robert's phone. The entire empire was collapsing, and the architect of it all was currently sitting in the cold visitation room of the county jail, separated by a thick, scratched sheet of bulletproof glass. In just a few days, Liam looked like a different person. He was wearing a drab, gray prison jumpsuit, his hair buzzed short, revealing the pale skin of his scalp. His eyes were sunken, his cheekbones jutted out, and his face was covered in stubble. He was utterly broken, his eyes shot with blood and a frantic, on the verge of collapse terror. He was handcuffed, and his body trembled uncontrollably. I sat across from him, dressed in a perfectly tailored black overcoat, completely at ease. I toyed with a metal lighter, the crisp click-clack of it opening and closing echoing loudly in the silent room. Ethan. Liam's voice was dry and raspy, like sandpaper. He pressed his hands against the cold glass, his knuckles white from the pressure. His eyes were locked on me, filled with desperation. It was you. You did this, didn't you? The report. That evidence. It was you. I glanced up at him, my expression neutral. I didn't confirm or deny it. A faint smirk even played on my lips, as if I were admiring a piece of my own handiwork. Ethan, man, brother. Seeing my indifference, Liam became agitated, leaning forward so far his forehead almost hit the glass. His voice was thick with tears. I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have been so close to Chloe. I shouldn't have provoked you. You're the bigger man. Just let me go this one time. I'm begging you. He pleaded incoherently, tears and snot streaming down his face, mixing with the grime, making him look filthy and pathetic. There was no trace of the smug man in the fire stairwell, the one who had sucked lipstick from his finger with a challenging glare. Let you go. I finally spoke, my voice as still as a dead pond, but carrying a bone-deep chill. Liam, the money you stole. That was for the Sterling employees' salaries, for the suppliers' hard-earned pay, for Robert Sterling's retirement. When you were taking that, did you ever think about letting them go? I wasn't thinking. The devil got into me. Liam cried, pounding his fists against the glass. I'll pay it back. I'll pay it all back. I'll have my parents sell their house. Please, just talk to the police. Tell them to let me go. I can't go to prison. If I go to prison, my life is over. Ethan, brother, I'll get on my knees for you. Please. He struggled to slide off his chair to actually kneel, but a guard behind him barked a sharp order. I watched him struggle and wail on the other side of the glass like a fish dying on a cutting board. I felt no pity, only a cold, almost cruel sense of calm. His despair and terror right now were not even a fraction of what I felt when I saw that security footage. "Oh, you'll pay the money back," I said slowly. The lighter's flame danced at my fingertips, reflecting in my emotionless eyes. "But you'll also do the time." Embezzlement, particularly large sums, particularly egregious circumstances. "Liam, take a guess. How many years do you think the judge will give you?" "No." Liam let out a desperate howl and slumped back in his chair. The light in his eyes died completely, replaced by endless terror and defeat. He knew I was telling the truth. He was finished. "Use your time inside to reflect," I said, standing up and adjusting the cuff of my overcoat. My tone was as casual as if I were discussing the weather. "Think about how you got here. Think about your best friend, Chloe Sterling, and whether or not she can save you now." Without another glance, I turned and left the visitation room. Behind me, I could hear Liam's unrestrained, animalistic sobs, filled with infinite regret and despair. That sound was the perfect soundtrack for his demise. Stepping out of the cold, oppressive jail, I was met by the slightly blinding winter sun. I squinted, taking a deep breath of the crisp air. The chill felt cleansing, as if it were purging the last of the filth from my lungs. The anger and resentment that had been festering for so long seemed to dissipate with Liam's cries. But it wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. "You're next, Chloe." A few days later was Chloe's 26th birthday. Times had changed. The Sterlings were no longer the glamorous family they once were. The mansion was mortgaged, the luxury cars sold off. Robert Sterling's hair had turned white overnight. He now hid at home, avoiding the creditors who camped out on his doorstep daily. A birthday party at the Summit Hotel was, of course, out of the question. The new venue was a small private room in a mid-range restaurant in the South Loop, clean enough, but at least 3 tiers below their former standard. Only a few people were scattered around the table. A handful of Chloe's former fair-weather friends whose families hadn't yet completely cut ties with the Sterlings. The atmosphere was heavy and awkward, a ghost of past celebrations. Chloe sat at the head of the table. She wore a slightly worn-out cream-colored sweater, no makeup, and dark circles under her eyes so deep that no amount of concealer could hide them. She had lost a significant amount of weight and looked gaunt, a shadow of her former self. She was trying to force a smile, but it looked more painful than a grimace. In front of her sat a small, cheap cream cake with a single, lonely 26 candle. Her friends offered half-hearted birthday wishes, their eyes darting around, unable to hide their pity and morbid curiosity. The room was suffocating. Just then, the door to the private room was pushed open. I stood there, dressed in a sharp black suit and a luxurious cashmere overcoat, an unwelcome specter at this pathetic, depressing little party. My appearance was a boulder dropped into a stagnant pond, shattering the fragile peace. Every head snapped in my direction. Their eyes were wide with surprise, confusion, curiosity, and a faint, unmistakable flicker of fear. Chloe looked up sharply. The moment she saw me, her pupils constricted, and her body began to tremble uncontrollably. The blood drained from her face, her lips quivered, and her eyes filled with a primal terror and a desperate, pleading prayer. She looked like she wanted to say something, but her throat was locked tight. "Mr. Vance?" one of the friends stammered, trying to break the tension. "What were you doing here?" I ignored her. My gaze was like a cold searchlight, locked on Chloe's deathly pale face. My expression was blank. I walked steadily to the center of the room, where a small projector, likely used by the restaurant to play music videos for guests, was connected to a wall outlet. "I heard it was Miss Sterling's birthday," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it carried to every corner of the room with a cold, metallic edge. As an old friend, I had to come and deliver a special birthday gift. I took out a silver flash drive, and under Chloe's widening, desperate gaze, I slowly inserted it into the projector's USB port. "No, don't, Ethan. I'm begging you." Chloe finally found her voice. It was a hoarse, tear-filled plea. She tried to rush forward to stop me, but one of her friends instinctively grabbed her arm. I ignored her cries and pressed a button on the small remote. Click! The blank screen on the wall lit up. After a flash of blinding white light, an image appeared. It wasn't a warm birthday greeting, not a sweet memory from our past. The first picture was from last winter. Chloe, lying on a bench in the hallway outside a hospital's OB-GYN surgical unit. Her face was as white as a sheet, her eyes empty and terrified. A thin hospital blanket was draped over her, and her hand was desperately clutching the arm of the person next to her. And sitting beside her, his face a mask of grave concern, holding her hand in return, was Liam Ryder. The photo was taken at the perfect angle, clearly capturing the sign on the wall. Abortion procedure area? A collective, stifled gasp filled the room. The friends' eyes were wide, their mouths forming perfect O's of disbelief as they looked from the screen to the ashen, swaying Chloe. Chloe looked as if she'd been struck by lightning. Her body convulsed, and a short, guttural whimper escaped her lips. She clamped her hands over her mouth as tears streamed down her face. The image changed. The second picture, the karaoke lounge. Liam was kneeling on the floor, holding Chloe's bare ankle in one hand, meticulously wiping the sole of her foot with a napkin. Chloe's face was unguarded, her smile one of pure, indulgent enjoyment. In the background, other friends could be seen looking on, their expressions a mix of amusement and indifference, as if this were perfectly normal. "Oh my God," one of the friends whispered, her gaze toward Chloe now filled with contempt and shock. Chloe was shaking like a leaf in a storm. She shook her head violently, tears flowing freely, broken, gasping sounds catching her throat, unable to form a single word. The third picture, the bombshell, from her birthday party last year, in the fire stairwell. The image had been carefully selected from the security footage, taken at a damning angle. Chloe, her back to the camera, the zipper of her dress pulled down, her entire back exposed. And Liam, standing behind her, a tube of red lipstick in his hand, leaning in to create his art. The crooked skull and the bleeding heart on the screen were a lurid, shocking red. But the masterstroke was the next image, a freeze frame from the video. Liam, after sucking the lipstick from his finger, looking up directly at the camera with a smirk of lewd, provocative triumph. Ugh, one of the girls gagged, covering her mouth. Holy shit, they were. Another stammered, too shocked to finish. Chloe completely broke. She let out a scream that was barely human, tore herself away from her friend, and lunged at the projector, trying to rip out the flash drive, to shut down the images that were destroying her. Turn it off. Turn it off. Ah. But before she could reach it, the image changed again. The fourth and most fatal picture. The background looked like a private photo studio or a luxuriously decorated apartment. It was Chloe and Liam, dressed in a formal wedding gown and a tuxedo. Chloe wore a white veil, and Liam had a bow tie. They were pressed close together, striking various goofy, exaggerated poses for the camera. In one, Chloe was viciously pulling Liam's ear. In another, Liam was on one knee, gazing up at her adoringly. In a third, they were making faces at each other, and Chloe was even pretending to plant a forceful kiss on him. In every single photo, they were both laughing, their eyes filled with an intimacy and affection that belonged only to lovers. The images were absurd, blinding, a profane mockery of love and marriage. Boom! The room erupted. The silence was shattered by a chorus of gasps, whispers, and shocked exclamations. Wedding photos. They actually took wedding photos. My God, what is this? I thought she was with Ethan. Ugh, so disgusting. She always acted like such a saint, but this is what she was doing behind his back. No wonder Ethan dumped her. Who could put up with this? Isn't Liam her guy best friend? Best friends wear wedding dresses together? Wow, I've seen it all now. The Sterling family is finished, and she's completely lost her mind, hasn't she? The very women who had once been Chloe's dearest friends now looked at her with undisguised contempt, disgust, and the morbid excitement of watching a train wreck. Their whispers were like 1,000 poison-tipped needles, all aimed at the broken woman in the center of the room. No, it's not. It's not what you think. Chloe clawed at the projector, trying uselessly to block the screen with her hands. But the images were projected right onto her body, nailing her to a public pillar of shame. She screamed and sobbed, her voice raw and broken. We were just playing. It was a joke. A joke. We didn't do anything. We're innocent. We're innocent. Her defense, in the face of such ironclad visual evidence, in front of images so dripping with intimacy and suggestion, was pathetic, weak, and utterly laughable. No one believed her. The eyes that once held envy and flattery now held only cold mockery and revulsion. I stood silently in the center of the room, a cold, impartial judge, observing the magnificent collapse I had orchestrated. Watching Chloe go from forced composure to utter despair. Watching her be flayed alive by the glares of her former friends. Watching her scream her useless denials. The rage and humiliation that had been festering inside me for 5 years, threatening to burn me to ashes, had finally found its release. It was like parched, cracked earth finally receiving rain. Like a blocked artery suddenly cleared. Like a dying traveler in the desert finally drinking a glass of ice-cold, bubbling gasoline. An indescribable, scorching, and utterly satisfying torrent of emotion shot up from the soles of my feet, coursing through my entire body and exploding in my mind. Every pore screamed with relief. Every nerve ending sang with exhilarating pleasure. Vindication. Pure, bone-deep vindication. 5 years of repressed frustration, of repeated betrayal, of soul-crushing humiliation. In this moment, with Chloe's desperate sobs and the contemptuous whispers around her as the soundtrack, it was all ground into dust. It became the very fuel for my boundless satisfaction. I could feel the corners of my cold mouth pulling upward into an involuntary smile. It wasn't a mask. It was a pure, visceral joy erupting from the depths of my soul. The joy of successful revenge. Chloe finally ran out of energy and collapsed in a heap on the floor by the projector, curled up like a crushed insect. She was still crying, but the sound was faint now, lost in the violent, uncontrollable shudders racking her body. The cheap, carefully prepared birthday cake lay overturned on the floor, its cream smeared across the tiles. The 26 candle lay in the filth, its flame long extinguished. I took a step forward, my leather shoes making a sharp, cold sound on the tile, and walked toward her. My large shadow fell over her crumpled form. The room fell silent again, every gaze fixed on me, full of awe and terror. I slowly knelt, bringing my eyes level with her face, which was a mess of tears, snot, and despair. She seemed to sense my presence and flinched violently, looking up like a startled rabbit. Her eyes, once so proud and haughty, were now just pools of bottomless fear and pleading, staring at me through a curtain of tangled hair. I took a fine, pure white handkerchief from my pocket with an almost elegant motion. Then, I reached out, and, with that handkerchief, I began to slowly, meticulously wipe the filthy tear tracks from her face. My movements were light, almost bizarrely gentle, but my eyes were as cold as ancient glaciers, holding not a flicker of warmth, only a deep, unsettling darkness. "What are you crying for?" My voice was low and calm, but it was like a poison-tipped icicle in her ear. "Isn't this what you wanted? Taking funny photos in a wedding dress with your best friend Liam. You were having so much fun, weren't you?" I tilted my head slightly, as if examining an interesting specimen, my tone laced with a cruel amusement. "The art on your back, the abortion aftercare, the special service at the karaoke lounge. All those little games between you two. You were having a blast, right?" Chloe's body trembled violently under the assault of my words. The fear in her eyes was about to spill over. She tried to pull away, but my hand, holding the handkerchief, gripped her chin with a touch that was gentle in appearance but absolute in its power. Now, I leaned closer, so close I could smell the stench of her despair, my voice dropping to a demonic whisper meant only for her ears. "The game is over." I stared into her constricting pupils, enunciating each of the last 2 words with crystal clarity, "is revenge." I released her, letting the handkerchief, now soiled with her tears and filth, flutter to the dirty floor in front of her. I stood up, looking down at the completely broken shell of a person on the ground. Then, my gaze swept slowly over the other guests in the room, who were all silent as statues, their faces pale. Not a single one of them dared to meet my eyes. They all looked down, away, as if I were a demon summoned from hell. I smoothed the wrinkle-free cuff of my suit jacket, and the cold, triumphant smile finally spread across my face, completely unrestrained. "Everyone," my voice returned to its usual clarity, now tinged with something like pleasure. "Please continue the party. Put it on my tab." With that, I turned. My shoes made a faint, sticky sound as they crossed the patch of spilled cream and the extinguished candle. Without a backward glance, I walked out of that room of despair, contempt, and utter ruin. Behind me, dead silence. And then, the sound of Chloe's completely unrestrained, heart-ripping, soul-shattering wail, a funeral bell tolling for herself, and for her rotten, decaying family. The bright lights of the hallway washed over me, chasing away the gloom and filth of the private room. I walked with a steady, purposeful stride, each step feeling solid and impossibly light. In my chest, the fire of vindication burned brightly, incinerating every shadow of the past, leaving only a pure, exhilarating, and almost terrifying release. 5 years. The debt had finally been collected. With interest. Chloe Sterling. Liam Ryder. This is the price of betrayal. Stepping out of the restaurant and into the cold winter night, the crisp air hit my face. I took a deep breath, the chill feeling like a purifier cleansing the last dregs of filth from my lungs. I didn't look back. The building behind me, the broken woman inside it, and her entire rotten world were discarded the moment I walked through the door, tossed away like a piece of trash. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was Chris. Mr. Vance. Chris's voice had an undercurrent of excitement. Just got word. Robert Sterling. He couldn't hold on. A few minutes ago, his company, Sterling Materials, officially filed for bankruptcy. All assets are entering liquidation. It was expected. The disastrous loss of the North Riverfront project, the embezzlement scandal with his right-hand man Liam Ryder, the banks cutting him off, the suppliers at his door, and now, the final straw of Chloe's public disgrace. Even if Robert Sterling had been a miracle worker, there was no coming back. I see. My voice was calm, emotionless. Proceed with the plan. Acquire the production lines and distribution channels we were interested in. Get them at the lowest possible price. Ignore the rest. Understood, Mr. Vance. Chris replied efficiently. I hung up and got into the black sedan, waiting for me at the curb. The driver, an old hand named Frank, glanced at me in the rearview mirror but said nothing, pulling the car smoothly into traffic. The city lights blurred past the window, a glittering tapestry of prosperity. This cold, steel jungle saw countless rises and falls every day. The collapse of the Sterling family was just a tiny, insignificant ripple, soon to be lost in the noise of the next big thing. The massive weight named Chloe Sterling that had been crushing my chest for 5 years was finally obliterated, turned to dust, and scattered to the winds. In its place was an unprecedented feeling of lightness, of spaciousness. No, not emptiness. It was the freedom that comes after breaking chains, the clarity after a blockage is cleared. It was the pure, searing satisfaction that rises from the soul after revenge is complete. It was like downing a shot of the strongest whiskey, a fire that burned from my throat all the way down, bringing a thrilling, almost violent sense of euphoria and fulfillment. Every cell in my body was roaring, screaming vindication. The car pulled into the underground garage of my high-rise condo by the river. The elevator ascended smoothly to the penthouse. Pushing open the heavy front door, I entered the vast, cool, minimalist space. There were no superfluous decorations, just a palette of black, white, and gray with clean, sharp lines, a perfect reflection of my current state of mind, clear, cold, and in complete control. I tossed my overcoat onto the Italian leather sofa and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows that took up an entire wall. Outside, the glittering river and the city skyline stretched below, a galaxy of lights on the ground. I poured a glass of ice water, condensation instantly forming on its sides. I leaned against the cold glass, looking down at the beautiful, cruel world at my feet. Chloe's face, smeared with tears, snot, and despair. Liam's pathetic, sobbing breakdown in the jail. Robert Sterling's overnight transformation into a broken old man. The images played back in my mind like the highlights of a masterpiece film. I felt no pity, not a shred, only satisfaction. It was like magma flowing through my veins, a destructive heat that brought with it a feeling of immense power. They deserved it. Every choice they made, every line they crossed, every time they trampled on me and humiliated me, they were paving their own road to ruin. All I did was give them a calm, precise push at the end to hasten the inevitable, and in the process I collected everything they owed me. My phone buzzed again. It was a local news alert. Breaking. Former Materials giant Sterling Materials files for bankruptcy. Founder Robert Sterling reportedly hospitalized after collapse. Daughter Chloe Sterling embroiled in scandal, rumored to have suffered mental breakdown. I glanced at the headline and swiped it away, deleting the notification. Their fate was no longer my concern. The filthy fire that was the Sterling family had burned itself out, leaving behind nothing but cold ash. Even looking at it felt dirty. The ice water was a shock to my system, a sharp, clarifying jolt. The searing satisfaction didn't fade with the completion of my revenge. Instead, it settled, solidifying into a stronger, colder, more absolute sense of power that filled every fiber of my being. I put down the glass and went to my study. On the massive mahogany desk lay several new project proposals. Their titles were bold, brimming with ambition and opportunity. The chapter of revenge was closed. Now it was time to conquer a bigger world. My journey, the journey of Ethan Vance, had just begun, and this time there was nothing holding me back. There was only an endless horizon, waiting to be claimed. A cold, sharp smile touched my lips. Vindication. It felt so damn good.